Namaste, good evening. We are back to our third session of Connecting the Dots Season 2. And today we have some very beautiful three speakers. And I'm Madhu, the NSC CT coordinator, and I'm honored to introduce these speakers to you. And if you remember, we have already done two of the sessions in this series. The first session was by Dr. Madhura Datta. She spoke on responsible tourism, and then Mr. Jitu Mishra was there, and a few more speakers were there in the last two sessions. And then this is our third session. Today we are starting with Mr. Architect Yash Gupta. Yash is an architect with master's degree in conservation and regeneration from CEPT University, Ahmedabad. Throughout his career, Yash has been involved in a variety of projects, ranging from development of heritage policies, nomination dossiers, conservation management plan, and heritage impact assessments for various organizations. He brings a unique perspective to each project using sustainability and community engagement. We are happy to see you here, Yash. So the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll just share my presentation.
Yes.
Okay. So, Jirnodhar practice of historic Ahmedabad. So, firstly, to begin with, I wanted to introduce this topic as my master's thesis topic, but this has, after the thesis as well, I did my thesis in 2020. So after that, it has grown leaps and bounds because I've presented this in almost like 3 to 4 major conferences. So what you see today is a developed version of my thesis. So giving you a little bit of a background to what Ahmedabad is and what its cultural fabric is. What you see on the screen are the various Jain temples that I have been mapping throughout, my course of the study. And the mapping had already been done by AMC while preparing the nomination dossier, but this was kind of a cultural mapping done to study the fabric and the intangible heritage associated with the temple as well. So the extent of the wall city is roughly like 6 square miles, and it has been inscribed as a World Heritage City in 2017. So there are around 110 or around 115 Jain temples in total. These Jain temples range in ages, like most of them are from British era and Maratha era, but few of them, go back to Mughal era as well, like almost like 400, 450 years old. The main material that you see right now is stone, but all of these temples, like mostly all of these temples started off as a wooden temple or a timber temple. As the time passed and the various cycles of Jirnodhar happened, these temples slowly and steadily changed to a different or a more contemporary material. Jainism had a very important role in the development of Ahmedabad. All the major trading families in Ahmedabad belong to the Jain communities. They have a very influential role in Ahmedabad's politics as well as the social fabric of Ahmedabad. So naturally, their temples are very ornate, and there was a lot of economic influx that happened in the making of these temples. Understanding Jirnodhar, what Jirnodhar means is basically Jirna and Uddhara, basically ruined and renewal. So renewal of ruin. Renewing the old would be a literal translation, but this is a conservation equivalent of conservation equivalent in terms of a spiritual mode of doing conservation. I'll get into the details later when we see the process, but the stakeholders involved in this process are the Sompuras. Sompuras are the craftsmen that practice the act of Jirnodhar. They are called Mahapatra Shilpis in the Orissa region, and Shilpis have more to do with the Dravidian style of architecture. So Sompuras are the craftsmen we'll be focusing on, and the community itself, because there are various rituals and the festivals that happen during the time of Jirnodhar that we'll be talking about. So the three components or the three major components we'll be talking about is the Jirnodhar or the manifestation of Jirnodhar itself. The Sompura community, Jirnodhar as a practice from Sompura community's perspective, Jirnodhar as a festivity from Jain community's perspective, and the manifestation. What happened over the time and how has this Jirnodhar process changed the styles and the overall sacred landscape of the World Heritage City. So talking about Jirnodhar as a practice. So Sompura families have been doing this Jirnodhar for for ages. Most of them go back to like 7-8 generations. They are the believers and worshippers of Lord Vishwakarma. So earlier Vastu Shastra had this complete codified information about how to renewal of a temple. Making temple from a scratch was a different section, but renewal of temple had a different section. Usually these knowledge system remained intact with few of the very important families who knew how to read Sanskrit and who knew how to apply this knowledge into or a living temple. In 1939, a breakthrough happened when N.M. Sompura published this manual called Shilp Ratnakar. Shilp Ratnakar was basically written in Gujarati, so this made the process of Jirnodhar very accessible to the other non-Sanskrit knowing craftsmen from the community. So there was a huge influx of craftsmen that started practicing this craft after having this having got hold of Shilp Ratnakar. And Shilp Ratnakar is basically a dialogue between Vishwakarma and his sons, and he's delivering a message of how to do a renewal or how to make a new temple or architecture as a whole. It has 14 chapters called 14 Ratna. It talks about archaeology, astrology, architectural proportions, architectural scales, architectural elements, etc., etc. I won't go into much details. But obviously, this is that was the theory part of it. The practice of Jirnodhar itself is very different because now the Sompura craftsmen have already started using AutoCAD or maybe SketchUp, and this modern drafting or visualization. The mechanization has started happening because they are no longer doing this hathoda and theli wala carving. They're using these tools, mechanical tools, to do all these. So there's a lot of change that has happened, which we will be discussing later on. But the scope of Jirnodhar is very different from scope of conservation, because when you're talking about conservation, the scope is limited to, let's say, the 7 degrees of conservation, starting from preservation to maybe restoration or adaptive use. But here it can range a little bit more, starting from purification of temple, removing a small element or a carving of a temple, to a complete restoration or a complete restructuring of a temple. So that's the scope is quite wide in terms of Jirnodhar, and I look at it as a spiritual process, more of a spiritual process and less of a material process, because it's actually the act of Jirnodhar which gets punya to the, or blessings to the community as well as the craftsmen. For them, earning punya is more important than restoring the temple itself. So now let's look at the entire thing with Jain community's perspective and how these festivals and rituals happen around the practice of Jirnodhar. So more or less the entire Jain community is involved in this process. So we'll be talking about poles and how the pole structure works. But there is a social obligation for the Jain community to get involved in this process, because like I said, they involve in this process to various things, like they give donation, they do shramdan. Men are usually more oriented towards the organization and the supervision stuff. Women usually take up the assisting of pujas and prasadas, etc., etc. Youth usually work as karyakartas in this entire process. The community has been, leaving the old city in quite a rapid, pace. So it has been burdening the social structure of the community, but still it's a very active and a very, fruitful community inside the old city. So as we talk about, the poles. So poles of Ahmedabad are usually a gated community. As you can see in the map, uh, this is the entire extent of a pole. This is the gate of the pole, which usually can be shut down. The gate is where you can see behind. Then you come inside. There is a temple. There is usually a main temple and sub temples. The pink ones are the sub temples. The yellow one is Upashray, where the monks stay, and the blue ones are the Jain communities' houses. So usually this was an entirely Jain core before, but like I said, many families have moved out to the new city because there are various issues in every old city, in every city, in every kind of issues over here, social and infrastructure, etc. So this chalk in front of temple, this is a typical layout of every pole in Ahmedabad. There are around more than 350 poles in Ahmedabad, and there is a chalk in front of every temple. So this chalk becomes a hotspot for all the festivals and activities. And obviously during the Jirnodhar, this chalk comes alive and there are various rituals that happen. So I'll be talking about the rituals, but I'm telling you where it happens first. Then obviously the interior spaces of the temple become a very lively places. And then the Upashray itself, where the monks stay, they give their lectures and their pravachans from inside these temples. So there are different, places where these festivals happen. This is the chalk that I was talking about. And obviously zooming out now to look at the entire fabric of the old city as a whole, there are different neighborhoods here. More than 27 to 30 Jain neighborhoods that were mapped during the inscription of this site. So there is an influx of pilgrims that come from the cities from around Ahmedabad to visit this and to witness this entire Jirnodhar process. Because let's say if this Jirnodhar is happening in a pole which has a certain caste or certain members of community that belongs to this village, they all would come in and chip in, their bit of money as well as the shramdar. And also people who have moved outside to the new city come in and usually donate to the entire thing. So the entire city as a whole comes alive during, even if single temple, is being renovated or Jirnodhar is happening, the entire community comes alive. And there are also these ritualistic parikramas that happen. So what they do is they start with this the oldest temple, which is there in Zaveri Ward, and they do a parikrama path of the entire stretch that you can see over here. So this stretch, the main intention is to raise, awareness that the Jirnodhar is happening. You can come and you can pitch in whatever you can, and you can involve yourself as a community, as a Jain community, and add to this process. It usually starts with Shuddhikaran process. This is the first ritual that takes place before everything. So the entire temple is cleaned up. Whatever needs to be shifted is shifted outside the temple. And there are different roles assigned to different community member as per the age and gender. Other things that happen is, the community engagement traditions that are happening throughout this Jirnodhar process, because the aim is to bring a lot of attention towards Jirnodhar so that more money is collected for the Jirnodhar process. So there are plays that happens, there are students workshop that happen, and there are, these free distribution things that happen very often during the Jirnodhar process. This is not typical. This varies according to different poles and different temples, but I took this case study of Zaveri Ward, so I'm showing this one to you. This is also the, like I said, these things happen to collect the funds, but the fund collection part is a completely different and a very elaborate process that I would be talking about right now. So everyday visitors, they can put samdan in the dan peti. That's how the funds for this entire tradition is being collected. So I'm also talking about the economic part of it and the fundraising part of it. Donations that are needed, they write these that let's say 50 lakhs or 40 lakhs is needed, so people can come and chip in the money. So this very interesting tradition that happens over here is the flag hoisting tradition. So the different prominent families will bid for this for getting an opportunity to hoist the flag on a very auspicious day. So this bidding is a very popular way of raising funds for the community, because um, I've seen like 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs being raised for just one day of this flag hoisting festival. So this is a very innovative technique of raising funds. Then the bigger polls also apply to paydees. Paydees are a bigger form of a trust that give money for restoration. And smaller polls will obviously chip the money together for different polls to do restoration as well. So they are a very closely knit community that help each other in this complete process. Then how it's executed is another deal, because when craftsmen, which we talked about earlier, and the community come together, they have this uh, their own rituals plus the combined rituals. One of the combined rituals is the Bhumi Puja and the Vedic chants that happened during the starting phases of temple building. Then there are different processes and steps that are mentioned right here, because and the processes of has also mechanized a bit. So this tradition is also facing a wrath of modernity, and how it is adapting to modernity is a completely different topic, which is also a very interesting topic to discuss. Then there are very interesting, after the entire process of Jirnodhar has happened, wanted to tell you about the maintenance rituals that are there in this community, that that is kind of a preventive conservation techniques for them to associate with their temples. So they do lime washes and whole water cleaning of the stone temples. Then there is a taka, which is a water harvesting thing. Even if someone has been in the old city of Ahmedabad, they would know that the taka is a very important part of old city's life, and they use the water only for that taka because it's considered to be very pure and auspicious. Other rituals like the cleansing, they only use very specific herbs and not the chemicals, because they, as a Jain, they respect the microbial life as well. They don't harm the insects and all. So they don't use chemicals for cleaning. They use all the natural stuff that is available. And then there are the different management system that has been put in place, like the PADs, Anandji Kalyanji PD. These are the all India, pan India kind of a trust that helps smaller trusts in growing their temples and their spiritual aspirations. There are religious heads or the Maharaj Sahibs that usually act as a moral guide or a moral judge during the conflicts and things like that. And there are old trust, and at the end there are karyakartas who execute the work on ground. So the last part that I wanted to talk about is how this Jirnodhar has manifested over the time. So the fabric of the Jain temples actually started with Ghar Derasar. So this is what you see as a Ghar Derasar, because in around 1500, in 16th century, the Jain community was quite limited, and they used to have very smaller kind of a shrines at their home just to pray. And as the community grew, they donated their entire wooden houses to for becoming a temple itself. So over the years, specifically in 17th and 18th century, most of the changes happened when these stone wooden temples started. They were started having Jirnodhar, and obviously the stone was an easily available material than wood, because government had already put some restriction on the deforestation. And stone became a very important building material, and then stone started. You see this 18th and 17th century temples coming up in stones, and further restoration happened. And you have to see the cross cultural links as well, because the same sect of craftsmen were used by Jain community, Muslim community, and the Hindu community. So you see different kind of iconography that has been exchanged over the years, and you can see similar kind of iconography happening in the mosque, the temples, etc. Also in the British era, when the Jain temples use this eclectic neoclassical forms and things like that, borrowing it from the the imperial rulers that they also were the patrons. So to conclude the entire thing, I would like to say that these local traditions. So when we talk about community-led practice or community-led conservation practices, this is the best example, because Jain community, the approach is not top-down but the down-up approach, because every major decision is taken by the karyakartas, by the pedis, by the people on ground, and not something that comes up to them, and enforces that law ki aapko ye karna. So also they are very self-sufficient in a way that they combine their resources and help each other. So this is a very effective model of conservation. But now after the inscription of World Heritage, what has been done is there is this in the management plan of Ahmedabad, there is a specific rule that has put the conservation through Jirnodhar in a very a dangerous place, because there are these grading signs that have been put. So the temples have been now graded according to their architectural value, and different kind of grades means you can only do a specific level of changes. But for the community who has been a part of this Jirnodhar tradition, for centuries, it becomes a loss of autonomy, because every time they have to change a little bit of the temple, they have to go and take these permissions, which takes years and years. So there has been this tussle and conflict going on since last 5 years, and there have been several protests, and people have removed these grading signs from the temples. This is something I had taken forward in my thesis, and I am still exploring the possibilities of what can be a possible solution to this. But this is a very important part of Ahmedabad and the Jain traditions in Ahmedabad. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yash. In fact, this has been a beautiful journey of Ahmedabad, which I'm sure many of you have not seen, right? And I would just add this to the audience who have just joined, or maybe not from the earlier sessions. We have doing these series on the festivals, which are, you can say, the lesser known festivals of India. Our festival range from tribal festival, then Durga Puja. Maybe many people know about this, but yes, some fact about Durga Puja which we don't know. And the agrarian festivals we have done from Northeast, Assam, Buddhist festival and Jain festival. Yash has made a very beautiful contribution. Thank you very much, Yash. Once again, I'm proud to see such beautiful, intelligent, and amazing speakers. Now, I introduce our second speaker and our co-coordinator for this Cultural Tourism National Scientific Committee, architect Shreeamey Phadnis. And apologies if I have not spelled it properly. You can correct me. Amey is an assistant professor in the Department of Architectural Conservation at SCOA Pune. He's a co-founder of Heritage Consultancy Studio Jasad. He has worked in various capacities for the documentation, restoration, and promotion of heritage pan-India with various organizations in India. Amey, I'm positively jealous with you for the level of work you are doing. Yeah, so the floor is yours. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, ma'am. We're just all trying our best. So I'll share my screen. Please let me know if it is visible.
Yes, Shreeamey,
Yes.
beautiful. Please put full screen. Yeah.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is architect Shreeamey, and today I will be speaking to you about a project that is very close to my heart. It's something that we are working on, and how that work is reflecting in the festivities and the the cultural aspect of the site where this project is currently ongoing. So the topic of my presentation is the religious landscape of Parner and Shri Janma Utsav therein. So unlike Ahmedabad, which is a very well-known heritage site, especially the walled city, Parner is a small town. So what I will be doing is I will first introduce the site, what work we have been doing. Briefly, I will introduce to you in the first part, which you can see here on the left. And on the right, what you can see is where the focus will then shift to the festivities, the celebration that is carried out, who are the stakeholders, what are the actual rituals and customs that are over there. And lastly, I will end with certain challenges that we foresee or we are facing right now, and what we are trying to do for the future. The gentleman in the middle, I have included his photograph because he's one of the custodians of the site 100 years back. So with that, let me introduce you to the site. So Parner is a small taluka in Ahmednagar district. Ahmednagar is northeast of Pune. It's a district in Maharashtra, and it's a very old site. So in the Deccan Sultanate period, we had something called as Suba Parner, and locally it was known as Pranta Parner. It has always been a very rich religious site, and there is also Pratikashi at Parner. So what we find in Kashi, the temples, the religious circuit, we find over here, we find a similar sacred landscape and a religious landscape at a smaller level. But even things like a Panchakroshi, it has its own smaller Panchakroshi. So in that time, people could not always travel as far, cross the Narmada and go to Central India or North India. So we have this concept of Pratikashi, further in down south. And within that larger religious landscape or that larger region, we have Ahmednagar and Kasba Parner, which is Kasba Parner is what used to be the small village of Parner. Today it is a town, and it has its own Nagar Parishad. So earlier it was a Gram Panchayat. Today it is a Nagar Parishad or a town council place. So within Parner, if we come on to the site, this is a fortified temple complex. It was built in the Maratha period, approximately 250 years ago. I will also be introducing you to the people who have built it and the family who is owning this site. But basically, the temple complex consists of a Maratha-style temple. It used to have a wada around it, which today does not exist, but we can still see the fortification walls. If you can follow my cursor, you can see the almost 12 to 13 feet high walls with niches. This used to act as caravansarais, or what we call in Marathi as ovarya or vavrya, where travelers could rest. For the same travelers and for the villagers, there was also a barav, which is a publicly accessible well for general water, usage for drinking and bathing, etc. And it also had a kund, which was specifically for the temple and ablution purposes only. So this is just to give you an idea of the site. You can see the physical fabric of the site. So I mean, it's quite striking, but yes, it immediately on the face of it, you can also see some very obvious physical issues that are there in the architecture and the structure. Coming to the history of this temple or this site. So the temple was built by the Huzur Phadnis family, which were Phadnis to the Holkar empire. So Phadnis is a title. Basically, it means the chief accountant or the accounts minister. And I think we have all, or most of us have heard of Nana Fadnavis. So Fadnavis is the title that is given, and each of the Subedars of the Maratha Empire, the Peshwas, the Gaikwads, the Sindhyas, the Holkars, the Bhosles, all of them had their own Fadnavis, Muzumdar, so on and so forth. And this particular temple or this site was built by the Fadnavis of the Indore state, which was, run by the Holkar dynasty. And like I said, it was built around 250 years back in 1776 Common Era. And this area was given, or this land was given to the family for the services that they did in the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761. So immediately the Mool Purush, or the main person of the family, once he got the land grant, as a gesture of thanks And one can call it CSR of that time, it's like a corporate social responsibility of the historic period. He decided to use the funds for public good, and he made this temple and this entire Vada and the caravan sarai around it for the people. And since the last 250 years, the family has been actively involved in this temple and its management. In the details of the stakeholders and current scenario, I will come to later. But this is just a brief introduction about the history of it. In terms of legacy, to put a larger picture to all of this, the family has also been active in Maratha politics for almost 150 years or 200 years, right until Indian independence. And they are very sensitive to heritage. They are very proud of the contributions that their forefathers had done. One of the important sites is the Kushavarta Tirtha at Trimbakeshwar, which is arguably one of the holiest sites in Maharashtra, because it is also the Ugam Sthan for Godavari, the Ganga of the South. So that has been built by the same person who has constructed the temple at Parner, to put things in perspective. Additionally, they have also done some more charitable architectural work across the Parner region, where they have built more baravs and kunds in smaller towns and villages. So their work is architectural legacy is strewn across that entire region. And they still continue to have certain land holdings, and they are very active in managing and conserving their own heritage. So we entered this site as architectural consultants, where the family and the trust wanted to conserve the temple, but they were not sure of what should be done, honestly. So it started right from documenting the temple, where the temple had not really been documented before. And so we did a drone survey, because certain parts of the temple were not accessible. I won't be going in too much details about the architectural work of it, but it should, I'm trying to create a foundation for what I'm going to come to later. So we did a drone survey, we did some photo documentation, we did a basic mapping of the site, understanding what is where. Students of Sinhagad College of Architecture also helped with the measure drawings, and they did a study during one of the studios. And we took all of this data, and we wanted to use the latest digital tools and techniques. So we also used techniques like photogrammetry and 3D printing. And all of this gave a very different view of the site to the owner and their family. One of the important reasons for doing all of this is because, like I said, the family is in Indore. Now that is in Madhya Pradesh, and the property is here in Maharashtra. So the family does not, although they are interested and they contribute funds, they cannot regularly visit. So they are not aware of the wonders that this site holds. So this was very important to in depth make them understand the value of their own site. In terms of the value assessment that we do in conservation. After doing the documentation and getting some observations, we started the analysis. The analysis and inferences were going to help us to actually then conserve the site. So we did certain studies like thermography, where we did thermal mapping to understand leakages, water retention. We took samples from the site from strategically identified locations, and we did the material testing, strength testing. We did also structural audit and visual inspection of the site from structural engineers. And all of this also helped us move towards solution. What we see on the right are some samples which were collected by an archaeologist who happened to come to the site and actually did some exploration. So before we actually touched the site, we wanted to make sure that we studied the site in as much detail as possible, because it is sacrosanct. Any change that we do is can have a major repercussion. So we wanted to be really sure about what we did. So this thorough study was important. And apart from that, we also suggested, before going for full-blown conservation practices, there's some regular upkeep and maintenance, like Yash spoke about the 7 degrees. A lot of problems can be solved by just regular upkeep and maintenance, carrying out time to time small repairs and retrofits. So the site is a living heritage. It is visited by the people. There are certain, although there is no VADA, but what you see in the photographs here, there are living blocks. So there are the caretaker stays over here, a couple of families who also help in the puja, etc. They stay over here. So because it is continuously occupied, we had to make sure that, the site is in livable condition. So we also carried out some basic repairs and retrofitting before starting the actual work. And finally, we came to architectural conservation. So As rightly said, Jirnodhar can be very tricky. It's more of a spiritual process than very clean, cut and dry, tangible process. But there were areas we identified with the client, with the locals, areas where we could carry out all of the processes that are written over here. So it is not necessary to, because the Indian context is so vague, so gray, and so complex and multi-layered. You cannot follow the same approach in every aspect or every part of the building, because the function varies, the form varies, everything varies. There are additions over a period of time. So we came up with a very evolving or dynamic plan as to which part of the temple requires what action. And accordingly, this process is still ongoing. So there's work ongoing right now. And I won't go into these details because, the focus of our sessions is on, the cultural tourism. So, and this is the last slide. So we also discovered some beautiful wall art, as you can see on the right in the magnifying glass. This is plaster. You can see the strands of hay. So, there are many techniques of frescoes and murals, wet on wet, dry on wet, things like that. So we only just rediscovered this right now. This is our latest discovery over there. On the left, you can see our contractor. He's applying a removal agent. And this is what it has revealed underneath the multiple layers of, paint. And now we are wondering what to do with this, and probably we'll get in some art restoration experts and move ahead. But this is to give you an idea of the architectural consultancy that we were providing and the stage that we came in at on this site. Now let's come to the understanding the cultural and the intangible aspect of this site. So I will be playing a short video to just give you a feel of that site. And after that, I will be getting into the actual slides and the presentation. Is this visible? Is the video also visible to you?
Yes.
I will press play. Yeah.
The audio is not coming, Amey.
Audio isn't there. I think that's some issue at my end. It was there last time also. But nonetheless, I think if you even see the video and just take in the visuals, it should give you a decent idea. So I'll just, if it's okay, I'll just continue.
Please continue.
Yeah. So this was just to introduce you to the festival, and if we look at the stakeholders, I can now formally introduce them to you. So like I said, the owner is the Sardar Phadnis family, which is based in Indore, and they created a trust in the 1980s, which is called the Sardar Phadnis Shri Ram Mandir Trust, which is under the purview of the Charity Commissioner Office at Ahmedabad. The local guardians of the Auti family, the management of this festival and everything that we just saw is by this gentleman in the center over here that you can see. He is the police patil. The police patil is a post like a sarpanch. There's a post called police patil who is supposed to maintain the peace of the village. So he is in charge of the management of this entire festival. The caretaker of the temple itself, just the temple, is the Shinde family who stay over there. The priest, the hereditary priest who has been there, their family has been there for the last 250 years, is the Purkar family. And there is also a priest who comes on a daily basis for the daily puja. He is Mr. Ambekar. And the devotees that we saw over here, they are all only from Parner town and Parner Taluka, not from outside anywhere. And for something like this to be possible and a trust to be able to have a celebration like this, now this is not something that is done from funds from outside. Like I said, the family and the trust has its own funds. These funds are generated from land that we can see below here. There is an Amrai at Siddheshwar Wadi and there is some agriculture land at Tarawadi, where there is a regular cultivation, and whatever money is received from the produce, from the agriculture produce, is put to use in these celebrations and the payments and the salaries. And the trust has an account over there in Parner, and there are fixed deposits also. So the interest that is earned from them is used in this. Now, the reason I am going to this much detail in telling you regarding this is because when we entered this site, we had a purely architectural understanding and an architectural inclination. But as time went by and as we attended the festivities and we became a part of this larger family or the larger team over there, we realized that we will have to, break barriers and definitions of what a conservation architect is. And we need to not limit ourselves. So me and my entire team, we got thoroughly involved in all of the aspects at this site, where from architectural consultants, we honestly became just largely umbrella heritage consultants. So we started thinking about the legalities and, of the heritage that this is. If there is any financial models we can help the client with to ensure that this continues into the future. Interacting with stakeholders, we didn't necessarily need to, but they definitely enriched our experience and our understanding of the site. So this was a very conscious decision that we took as consultants. And somehow we got, I would say we entered this flow. And even today, we are carrying out a very, I would say, undefined role over there, and we are enjoying the process, honestly. So let's get to the festivity that we saw. So the festival is of Ram Navami, and Ram Navami, like the name suggests, is Navami is 9 days, and the first day of this 9-day celebration is on the Marathi New Year. So the Chaitra is the first month, and the first day of Chaitra Mas is Gudi Padwa, which is for Maharashtrians is one of the most auspicious days. It is the New Year day, and that is also the day that the Navami period starts. And the Navami itself falls in the Shukla Paksha. And if we look at the English calendar, that is somewhere March end or April beginning. And it is again a very auspicious day for all Maharashtrians. What are the activities that are carried out throughout this Navratri? So if you can see this, if you can see to my camera, if you can see me, I am holding up a poster over here. Is this poster visible to all?
Yes.
I'm sure it's not legible perfectly because of, but this is the kind of poster that is made before every celebration every year. And you can see the itinerary, roughly the itinerary is given over here. And basically these type of activities are carried out where bhajani mandals from the surrounding region they are invited over there, and there is bhajan and kirtan that happens once in the morning and once in the evening. Pathan is basically there are pothis, which are basically religious texts. So in the afternoons, the religious texts or pothis are read by the Guruji over there. And Nam Jap is basically Ram Nam Jap. So we all know as Hindus, Shri Ram, the name is supposed to carry power. So the more you chant it, the more punya you get. So throughout the 9 days, 24 hours every day, unbroken, there is a Nam Jap that is happening, for which a group of women are invited every year. And in in rotation, the Nam Jap happens, where there is, the 24 hours are divided into smaller sessions of 2 hours each, and one person stands with an ek tari, which is a single string like a veena, and does the Nam Jap. After 2 hours, that person sits down and another lady immediately continues the Nam Jap. So for 9 days, this continuous Nam Jap is happening in the background, while the Kirtan, Bhajan and Pothi Pathan is also happening in the, in the foreground. And the entire place takes a very festive look. You can see over here, this is from this current year, in this year's Ram Navami was in March, and Gudi Padwa was on 22nd March, if I'm not mistaken, and 30th March was Ram Navami. And this photograph is taken from them, where the lighting and all you can see. You can also see the banner over here. So the entire place becomes very colorful. There is a pandal, Zumbars are there. The entire place gets a very festive look. On the day of the Ram Navami, so after the the first 8 days when all of this bhajan kirtan happens, the 9th day is basically Ram Janma. That is when Shri Ram is born. And according to text, he is born at noon, at the stroke of noon, Shri Ram was born. And at 11 o'clock, the Ram Janma Katha, which is the story of his birth, is started. The recital is started, which exactly lasts an hour. And at 12 o'clock, the Maha-Arti happens at the auspicious time. And in the background, everybody is actually chanting the Ram Raksha Stotra. Again, if you all know, Ram Raksha Stotra is like a kavach, anybody who requires protection or there is fear. So, and just for general well-being, we chant the Ram Raksha Stotra. So this continuous Stotra jap is going on from the morning till noon. And at noon, we have the Maha-Arti. Here we can see one of the current members of the family, and this is the Guruji. So they are carrying out the Ram Janma. Ram Janma, there is a Abhishek that is carried out. So for Shri Ram is not a god, he is an avatar. So there is a difference between the rituals that are carried out for gods and for avatars, because avatars have manhood or womanhood, they are human. So for Shri Ram, the Abhishek that is carried out is called Paumanatsa Abhishek. And that Abhishek also lasts almost 1 hour. So this Abhishek is carried out. And that's the Navami day, where people celebrate his birth. The next day, which is Dashmi, there is something called as Parner and Ramacha Kala. So I'm sure many of you must have heard of Gopal Kala, where Gopal, that is, infant Krishna, used to break matki with malai and loni and butter in it and used to eat it. So people celebrate that as Gopal Kala. Similarly, Ramacha Kala is carried out, where in the video also we could see the 3-4 gentlemen breaking that pot and removing something from it. That is Ramacha Kala. After that happens, there is a Mahaprasad where all the devotees are served, sattvic food, which is prepared on the spot over there by a local caterer. So in all of these processes, with the bhajan kirtan, with the catering, with the pandal, with the person who supplies water, the sound system, all of this, the local communities and the local families are involved. And it's almost like they're absentee, they are the present caretakers on behalf of the family. So they play a very significant role in this entire celebration. So Naivedya is then shown to the deity, and then the Mahaprasad is served to everyone. And I think around, it's not a very large celebration because not many people know about Parner, but even for a place like Parner, around 1,200 to 1,500 people attend the celebrations on Navami and Dashmi. And now coming to the thought behind it. So basically, everyone who is a part of this wants to do some sort of seva, and seva is a very unique concept. I think Yash also talked about it, the community and what they want to do for their own religious heritage. So similarly, seva over here is very important. You can see this is our colleague from Studio Gestalt who's playing the, who's singing over here. He's performing Bhakti Geet and Bhav Geet over here. So there are various types of seva that can be performed. One of them is very importantly is Kala Seva. And we all know that the Ranga Mandap in a temple is supposed to be for performances, which is done as seva to the Lord. It is not done for our entertainment or for our purpose. It is for the purpose of the deity who presides in the temple, who is like a living deity who resides over there, who is like the regent of that area, and we are performing for him. We are giving service to him. So Nitya and Gayan Seva happens over here every year, but this year, like I said, we are in the flow and we are now totally involved in all of this. So this year we decided to be a part of it. And this is Neeraj from our team, and even Himanshu, Neeraj and Himanshu actively participated in this. The second is Anna Seva. So as we all know, one of the most important dans that can be done in life is Annadan, where you can feed the hungry. So we never let anyone go thirsty and hungry. That is a very basic tenet of Hinduism. So Annadan is also happens over here. Ki Bhagwan ko bhog chadane ke baad, then everybody is served food. Also, if anyone wants to donate grains, vegetables, fruit, dry fruits, or any such form of eatable items, that dan is taken and it is distributed to the needy. And you can see that the locals have a lot of faith. They have a lot of you can say they are highly dedicated, to this entire process. They are genuinely involved in all of this. It is not just done for the sake of it, or just because it is a tradition, an age-old tradition. They are genuinely in the moment and partaking of this. If we look into the idea behind this or the philosophy behind this, all the people who are involved in this process, so these are the people who are the management behind all of this, behind the architectural conservation that we saw, as well as the the festivities and the celebration. But every person is trying to do some sort of seva over there. So seva through bhakti, seva through jnana. So people who are coming there as devotees, that is bhakti seva. People who are the the kirtankars, the bhajani mandal, the gurujis, they are jnana, they are telling their religious and spiritual knowledge they are giving. Karma, so those who are not able to do any of that, those who are setting up the pandals, who are serving the food, who are giving the water, they are very consciously aware of doing this as a seva. This is not something that I am just putting here in the presentation, because these are the talks that happen over there. We have heard this. This is all the talks that are going on, and people are very consciously aware of what they're serving. And through all of this, what they feel is they will attain, the sort of Rajasi thing that everyone aims for, so it is almost a transactional nature where you are serving you're serving the Lord and you are getting strength out of it. So we have all heard this term of bhakti and shakti. Through bhakti, you get shakti, where you give bhakti to the Lord and he gives you strength, he gives you wisdom, something like that. In all of this, what are the challenges and that I see? So again, going back to the architectural part, because I've also spoken about it earlier in the beginning, I will first talk about it and then I will go to the challenges in the festivities and the religious tourism happening over there. So in terms of the built fabric and the tangible heritage that is over there is a great apathy and neglect in terms of looking at it as heritage. So yes, it is a religious site. Everyone comes there to worship, but nobody understands the importance of the physical fabric. Now this, again, like I said, it has to do with the concept of Jirnodhar. And for us, we are not really, a temple is, a sacred space more than, having sacrality in the actual building itself, but at the same time, it is a wonderful architecture. It's not really the scale at which it is there, it's not really seen anywhere else in the surrounding region. We see smaller temples, and this fortified temple complex, as a plan form, is also quite unique. So there is a challenge if we want to really continue using this site and maintain it or conserve it. How do we generate revenue for it? The family is only going to be involved so much, and the future generations, you never know how involved they will be in all of this. So we need to come up with a sustainable model to generate revenue so that the site is self-sustaining. Thirdly, can we get worshippers and tourists? So these are two different things. Again, we have to understand. Devotees are religious. Tourists can come with various different things. And so this site also sees a lot of tourist inflow, where people who just want to see Maratha architecture or temple architecture who come over there. So understanding the difference between the two, understanding their needs, and being able to address both of them, because till now only devotees and worshippers have been addressed, but the tourists have not really been addressed. But I think that is very crucial. So all of this comes, and I feel heritage economics is very important over here. And I don't know how we are going to do this. It's quite, it's going to be quite a tough task, but we are working on a long-term solution. If we look at, in the transition, how this also affects the festivals and the cultural scenario over there is there are no long-term protocols or processes that have been created. So yes, there is a temple trust, the family is there, but they are only looking at problems as they arise. It's more in retrospect, or problem khada hone ke baad use address kiya jata hai. But there is no management plan for, forget visitor and tourism management, there is no management plan for just even the architecture or the site. So something like that is definitely necessary. Thirdly, like I said, the locals and the client and everybody involved in this needs to be sensitized and educated in terms of heritage understanding of this site. So yes, like I said, again, religious understanding or respect bahut hai, but understanding as a heritage site, both the living heritage and the intangible practices, as well as the built heritage and the tangible heritage, both needs to be done, and the capacities need to be built. So even the contractors or the processes that you saw over there, we are carrying out, we are not working with already established contractors. We have taken hold of local contractors and we are trying to train them in the different processes, usage of material, building techniques, etc. Again, it's a very, very tough task, but I think in the long term, that is a better practice than, just wahi gisa pita karne se. So we are trying to get in the local people involved in the architectural practices. And in terms of the actual celebration and the cultural tourism there itself, like I said, Parner is quite secluded. It's not very well known. I mean, people don't know it's in Maharashtra or MP or Karnataka or where. वहां से शुरुआत है. So सबसे पहले बड़ा challenge है awareness creation, letting people know about this. Initial पहले एक दो slides में मैंने आपको फोटो दिखाए थे context के. So it has a very beautiful religious landscape. There are many. It is dotted with many smaller temples, mausoleums, mosques. So definitely there is a scope. If you're able to create a circuit out of it, people can come. Like I said, there are a few tourists, but they are mostly Maharashtrians and they're from this Pune, Nashik, area. Once some awareness is created, we can promote this site, we can advertise about it. Like I said, I showed this poster. Now this is just for the 9 days, but letting people know about the temple or the old city. So if you remember, I also said there was a kund and a barav over there. The barav is 1100 years old. I'm not joking. There is a inscription which dates back to 1020 Common Era or something like that. So which is right next to this temple. So if you look at the antiquity of this site, it is amazing. I mean, the city, this small town also has a fortification wall around the entire town, not just the temple. So there is definitely a lot of value, historical value, archaeological value, architectural value to this. And through this, how can we get more footfall over here of visitors, create this as a proper tourism spot? ये एक बेसिक करने के बाद फिर हम आगे का देख सकते हैं, where disasters and disaster management or risk assessment and all of that. But the reason I'm putting all of this is we want to be here for the long haul, where we are as a team, we are interested in this. So we are not going to be here for just the next 2 years or 5 years or whatever. We'll be here for the next 15 or 20 years. And we want to exit this site only when we have reached this level where the site and the systems that we have put in place over here are able to evolve dynamically on their own. And basically the site starts taking care of itself and the locals start owning the site as their own and processes start happening on their own. So that's what we are aiming for. And hopefully the future, I mean, no one can see it, but hopefully we'll try for this. This is the project team that has been working here on the site. Very important. All of this work cannot be possible without them. So I would really like to read everyone's name out specifically. TSS and mapping was done by geography surveyors. The aerial photography and drone surveys done by Parichaya Architects. Photogrammetry and modeling by Raj Webb of Associates. 3D printing by Studio Jadughar. Structural investigation by Epicons. Material testing was done by Vision Consultants. Thermography by MacDoc Services. Archaeological exploration by Dr. Rajesh Pujari. Research and study by students of FIMH SCOA. And lastly, architectural and art conservation by Studio Gestalt and team. 90% of our team is young. We are trying to build a team of extended team of young multidisciplinary professionals. And if anyone wants to get in touch with any of these people, I would really love to share their contact and we can always contribute to each other's practice and study. And with that, I would like to end this presentation on the religious landscape of Parner and the Ram Janma Utsav therein. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shreeamey. It was a wonderful journey. Honestly speaking, even I don't know the context, what you started with, where are the boundaries and what is the present location about this place. So once again, thank you very much. And with this, thanks, definitely, the team members they are associated with you, they've done a great job, I would say. And I wish you continue to do that good job. Now, I now request architect Shivani Sharma to come forward. Shivani is a conservation architect, graduated from School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal in 2017. She's a principal architect at the Achintya Studio, Nagpur. She's specializing in the field of consultancy in heritage and design through this firm. And Shivani is also an academician working as visiting faculty at SSPAD and PIADS, Nagpur. So with Shivani, and we will go to another beautiful location. Welcome, Shivani. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Should I start sharing the screen? And
please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So a very good evening, everyone. So I am architect Shivani Sharma Chinde. I would be discussing about Markanda temple, Gadchiroli. So, and specifically about the Mahashivratri festival, which is celebrated during the month of February every year in Markanda. Now, with this place, Markanda have been associated very closely, as also Shreeamey rightly said, that we conservation architects basically are very passionate about the sites we work on. And over the period of time, similarly, Markanda was my thesis, post-graduation thesis topic. Then I worked with Archaeological Survey of India on the same site for 2 years as a project architect for the restoration of this temple. And with the grace of God, I have also now presently working for the village development level. My studio Achintya is working for the development work of the temple, as in terms of the conservation work and the development of the village under the organization of Drona, which is based in Delhi, Gurgaon, and we are working for Maharashtra state government regarding the same. So now today I'm going to just give you a brief about Markanda temple, which is there located in Gadchiroli, and basically discuss about association and celebrations which are there in and around the temple. Now, in the presentation, I will be talking about the group of temples which are there in Markanda, the geographical context and importance of the same, what is the protection status and how does it affect the overall scenario and dynamics of the monument, association with the temple, which the people have with the Markanda temple, and the importance of Shivratri. Now, in terms of, first of all, understanding where the site is located. So basically, it is there in Gadchiroli district of Maharashtra. Just a second. Yeah, so here we can see the Gadchiroli district, which is on the right hand side. There is Chhattisgarh. Then there is Chandrapur district on the left hand side, if you are facing the screen. Below there is Andhra Pradesh and present days Telangana, and it is the Gadchiroli state basically is divided from Chandrapur because through this blue line which you can see here, which is the Vainganga river. Now, in regards to the spiritual importance, because of the geographical context of the temple, it is a Tirtha state, a Kshetra. Now, in terms of what is a Tirtha Kshetra and why Markanda is a Tirtha Kshetra, whenever in India, wherever you will find the river flowing from north to south and it takes a direction in again a northward direction, the place has a very spiritual importance. All our sacred sites which are there all over India, they have a religious importance if they are unique in terms of their geography. So if you can see in the image which is here and towards the pointer, this Vainganga river is coming from north to south, and then it is taking a turn in again upper or the north direction. And where the river is taking a direction in north, Markanda is located exactly on that location. Again, the river takes a turn and again starts flowing in the southern direction. So this is why the place is important and it is called as a Tirtha Kshetra. Now, it is important to understand this phenomena because the lot of association and ritualistic practices which are associated with the temple are existing because of this important geographical phenomena which has occurred, and that is why the temple is there. Now, this is a closer look towards where Markanda is located in context to the Wainganga river. So this is taking a turn, and then Markanda, the red dot which you can see here, is the temple complex. Now, zooming down now again towards the village. So this is a small village of around 1,500 of a population, and the yellow, this yellow space which you can see here is the temple site, and you can see these some kind of platforms which are created on both the sides of the temple. These are kind of ghats which are developed by the local people and the Gram Panchayat. This is the road which is in gray color. So all the social, cultural, religious activities or practices are towards the river side, which we can see here, and the residential population or wherever there is the settlement, village settlement, it is on the other side of the river. So all the activities which are basically associated with the temple are towards the river side. Now, this in the bottom, you can see just an image, a panoramic image of, if you can visualize it from across the river. So this is the temple complex, and these are the platforms which are there, and then there is this river. So the photograph is quite of the month March, though, so the river has shrunk a little because of the summer season. Now, in terms of the heritage assets of the temple, you can see this is the site map which shows different types of temples which are there in the temple complex. The largest one, which you can see in the purple, is the Markanda temple, and in front of it, it is the Nandi Mandapa. Now, in terms of the story which is associated with this temple site, Markanda was a rishi. Markandeya was a rishi, and he was a devotee of Lord Shiva. So basically, this whole site is dedicated to Lord Shiva. All these temples, small or large, have all the Shivalingas which are there in the Garbhagrihas of this temple. Now, apart from the temple, there are also Shivalingas which are on the sides. There is just the Shivling, and then people pray it. So there are 5 to 6 Shivalings around the site also. Now, in the front of these are the steps, and also steps come as in ancient steps which are kind of which used to function as ghats. And they also act as a retaining wall for the whole complex here, if we see in the map. Now, yeah, this is the overall image of the temple complex, where we find 18 temples, of which the main temple, the largest one, is the Markandeya temple. And now you cannot find the shikhar of this temple because it is under restoration from few years. This is another image which gives you a context of how the temple complex looks like. And this is the river Wainganga, and you can also see a small bridge across this river. This bridge is very interesting in terms of, if we go back to the previous slide. Yeah, this is the river, and the small bridge which I have just shown you is the little bridge which is used by the people. It is kind of a walking bridge, and people also use sometimes their cycles because it is just halfway in the river and incomplete because of some reason over the years. And across the river there is another district, which is Chandrapur district. Yeah. Now, in terms of the associations, in terms of the intangible assets which are there associated with the site, there are festivals, rituals, and other associations which are there in the temple, in the and around the temple complex. Now, if we try and understand, there are also different festivals, and according to which you will find visitors. Now, the visitors can be of different types. They can also, Shreeamey has mentioned about them, that not all of the people are pilgrims. Some of them are pilgrims, some of them are scholars, some of them are just tourists, some of them are students who are there for the research. So there are different kinds of visitor who are visiting the heritage sites. Now, out of them, 90% here in Markanda, roughly 90% of them are pilgrims. Now, the site holds a very, very amazing archaeological, historical, architectural value. However, it is not very much known in Maharashtra or in India. But it is very famous in terms of the local people, in terms of inter-district popularity, which is there associated with the site. Now we'll get to know when we come to see that what different kinds of festivals are celebrated. Now, in terms of the public which visit the temple during the weekends or holidays, range from 1200 to 1500. During the Shravan Somvar, which is there in the month of July and August, there is a population of around floating population of around 10,000. Which is Shravan Somvar basically is dedicated to Lord Shiva. The Somvar or the month or the days of Mondays are very important in this month. And Rishi Panchami, which also is there in the month of August, there are people ranging to the number of 10,000. However, if you notice the point number 2, which is Mahashivratri, which is there in the month of February, nearly 10 to 12 lakhs of people attend this complex, temple complex and the premises of the temple in the month of Feb. And the people are not from they are not coming from throughout the India, but they are coming from adjacent districts and state. So there are people from, if people who know Maharashtra basically, so there are people from Bhandara, Chandrapur, Nagpur, these surrounding districts of Gadchiroli, and as it is the bordering state, there are people from Chhattisgarh, and there are people from the present day Telangana, and previously it was Andhra Pradesh. So basically, near about a radius of 500 kilometers, these 10 to 12 lakhs people are coming from there, not from farther than that. Now, in terms of protection status, now it is important to understand the protection status of this property, because the kind of intervention which is allowed very much depends upon the same. Now, this site is under the protection of Archaeological Survey of India. So, as we all know, that there is this boundary, these boundaries of protected, prohibited, and regulated area exist very rigidly in terms of our premise. Now, if we try and understand the AMSR Act, which was created by the Britishers before the Indian independence, they basically focused upon freezing a monument. Their concept was related to that. But Indian culture or basically South Asian culture believes in living heritage. So there is always this contradiction happening between the local community and the sites and ASI individuals, because the Britishers have left, but the act has remained and we have to follow the same. So these boundaries, which you can see in terms of the protected area, the red lines, the yellow line, and the green line, they create a kind of bubble where it restricts the people to associate with the site. Now, because in India, association is very much linked with the various kinds of rituals which are performed in and around the site. Now, because it is an ASI protected monument, people are not even allowed to take maybe flowers or kumkum or whatever they bring to this site from wherever they are coming from. So all these ritualistic practices which are restricted in the boundary of this red boundary, people perform it outside this red boundary. Now, over the period of time, if we see, in this image, it will be more clear. This is the temple. Yeah, this is the temple, and this yellow color boundary is the 100-meter boundary which is there. So now this is basically the status of protection and the basically limitations around the ASI protected monument. Now, in terms of the association with the temple, I've tried to decode the association in terms of the activities which are happening within the premise of the temple, near the temple and the river bank, temple and the interface of the village. So basically, these are the different, there are 3 types of zones which are formulated based upon the activities which are performed by the people. So now, according to the observation and studies which we have done, we have tried to zoom in terms of these 3 zones. Now, if we see the activities which are happening within the premise of the temple, so now people are not allowed to take their flowers or their puja samagri inside the temple. So they pray each and every stone, whichever they find inside the temple complex. So they even pray the fallen roof fragment which are there spread around the site. So it is very interesting to understand that how people are associating themselves with even the stone fragments. Those are there on the site. Now, if you can see here, these stones are of the roof of the Nandi Mandapa, which have fallen over the period of time. Now here you can see there is some musical praying which is happening. They are taking a kind of a procession to the main temple. Here, here people usually get their coconuts which they offer in the temple, and they break it there and take the prasad home or serve it to the god. So basically these different few kinds of activities, only these activities are allowed inside the temple complex. Now, if we see what is now happening near the temple and the river bank. Now, if we see, if you're facing the screen on your left-hand side, this zone which you can see here, basically all the activities which are related to some kind of a celebration, like we can say marriage or a birth of a child or namkaran or janev sanskar, all these celebrating rituals are happening over here on the left hand, this larger zone. And these are the different activities, Satyanarayan Puja, or maybe Kal Sarpa Dosh or Mangal Dosh, because this space has a lot of importance because it is a Tirtha Kshetra. Now, it is important because of the reason that I have already told you, because of the geographical context which the site holds, basically, where it takes a turn in the northward direction and then flows back again in the southern direction. So this makes the site very important in terms of all these rituals which are being performed around the temple. Now, because it is an ASI site, people cannot do it in the temple premise. So they have created their own zones outside the temple, and these ritualistic practices are performed. Now, again, the zone which is marked over here towards the river side. So people come also for washing their clothes, for washing their kettles. You can find these two ladies cooking a kadhai, as in if some of their wishes are fulfilled by the god. Now they are not allowed to cook inside the temple complex, so they cook on these ghats. They make some prasad and then get it inside the temple. So these are some kind of activities which are also performed. Now, another interesting part on the right side of this complex, where you can see the zone 4. Here, the activities or the rituals which are performed are basically after death rituals which are performed. People come after on the 13th day after the death for the submergence of the ashes, or maybe for giving their hair to the person who is gone. So all these rituals which are associated with the after the death rituals are performed in this zone, basically, which is there on the right hand side of the temple complex. Now you can see here, along the broken bridge on the right side of the temple, they are cutting the hair, they are sitting and performing this puja. People carry their cycles and then travel from one district to another. So these are different kinds of activities which are happening near the temple and on the river bank. If you see the interface of the temple and the village, which is basically this road, this is basically used by people for their daily activities, and also for any kind of processions which are maybe in 15 days or 1 month, or for that matter in maybe our quarterly events, basically. So this path majorly acts as a processional path, and also the path which is used by people on daily basis. Now, coming to finally the Markanda annual festival of Mahashivratri. Now here, I guess you will be identifying this bridge which is halfway done and halfway incomplete. So you can see that during the festival of Mahashivratri, people come across the district and they create this small temporary sheds and settlement across the river, if you can see. Now, because the bridge is incomplete, there is a temporary bridge which is created by placing the sandbags in the river, and people travel across. Now, I know it is very dangerous, but it happens every year. and it is happening in this way only. So now this is a very interesting local map which is prepared by the Gram Panchayat of the village, where they show that what kind of areas or what kind of activities are happening in which zone of the village. Now, if this is the Vainganga Nadiche Patra is the river bank of Vainganga. So here is the temples, here is this mutt, here is Dharamshala, here is another temple, here is here is a Meena Bazaar, again a Meena Bazaar, again a Meena Bazaar, Atithi Gruha. So they have made their own map to during the Mahashivratri in order to identify what activity is happening where. Now we see again the same phenomena that during the Mahashivratri, what does happen during the span of Mahashivratri, what happens in the premise of the temple. Now again you see there are huge population which is coming to visit the temple during these auspicious days of Mahashivratri, basically on the day of Mahashivratri, and also 5 days before and 5 days after that. So basically this is a 10 days festival which is happening in the village along with the main day of Mahashivratri. Near the temple and the river bank. Now the river bank is very much occupied by the people. They take a dip in the river and then visit the temple. The people very dangerously cross these terrain to cross the bridge and perform different kind of activities. There are also boats which function on the rivers on a very frequent basis, wherever if you go on a daily basis to the site, you'll find just one boat and the boat's person will be very moody that if he will take you to the other side or not. But during the Mahashivratri, the whole dynamics of the space changes extremely and it looks something like this. Now, if you see these images, now the village transforms completely and there are different kinds of markets, fair, because huge number of people are gathering during a festival of Mahashivratri and these activities are happening around. So now, as a gist of all these activities which are happening, so basically I have tried to tabulate them, that what is happening during the festival of Mahashivratri in Markanda. Now, as a part of out of my interest during 2019 when I was working on the site, I conducted with few of my colleagues who were working on the site with me. They were not architects, but they were interested to work with me. There were few architectural interns also. So we conducted a socio-cultural sample survey during Mahashivratri festival and we framed these questions to understand that what the people feel like, what do they want? Because if we see that image of people crossing the river and staying in shades, so basically there are no facilities in terms of basic facilities which people would be needing, or from where they come from, or trying to understand that what are different kind of do they know any other places, or they just come for Mahashivratri to this site? Where do they stay? What is the accommodation? What food do they eat? Do they cook their own food, or do they buy it from the shops which are there? Are there enough basic facilities like toilets and drinking water? And for how many days do they stay? And so we conducted this kind of survey randomly out of interest. And then a year back, this survey helped us when we were working on the development for providing facilities at the village level. So now this survey format, which we conducted for around a sample survey of around across 400 to 500 people, it gave us these results when we tried to analyze at what kind of facilities are there, and then how they are trying to accommodate themselves, or do they need anything, or do they not? Do they need our intervention, or are they happy with the system which they own have created over the period of time? So yeah, this is this chart actually at the end it gives a very important clue to us to way forward, that what kind of intervention as architects or as government organization or as any kind of a stakeholder to this beautiful site we should consider while intervening in any kind of possibility here in Markanda. So yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you so much.
I must appreciate the efforts you and your team members have put in the site. I especially like the visuals, the drawings.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Very, very well done. I just had one question from my own side that, is there anything being done from the government side or Gram Panchayat side to take care of the, I would say, when we are using the space as a cremation ground also. So, are they planning to do some electrical crematorium, or they are very less in number and it is insignificant in terms of pollution?
No, in terms of cremation activity, not exactly cremation is happening around the temple complex. Now, people come to just immerse the ashes which they get from their homes.
Got it.
Now, in terms of cremation, now the population which is there in the village, they are basically tribal people, so they do not have this activity of cremation in their practices. So
Right.
they do not cremate the bodies, right? Now, a few of them I have seen, but they do it far away from the village. So not any kind of cremation, but the submergence of ashes happens around the temple complex, the area which I have shown.
Right. That's great. That's great. So we close the program here by thanking all the speakers first, and then the audience who have given their valuable time to us. And definitely the other two committees, we have the historic towns and villages, and then we have the intangible cultural heritage. So we are jointly conducting this event with them. And from that committee, we have Niyati and Manalini and Mona Lisa to be thanked. And from our own committee, our co-coordinator, architect Shreeamey and Roshni. Thank you very much. And we meet with another episode for next 2 Saturdays again. So now slowly we will be going towards the southern India, and in the last episode, we will cross the Indian border. So hope to continue to see you for the next 2 weeks. Is there any question we would like to take up, or we understand to close it? Thank you. Thank you once again. Namaste. Good evening.